Hello there, and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, the founder of Eutrema Ltd. As I say on every episode, we manufacture interesting fertilisers, novel biostimulants, and organic biopesticides, which we sell all around the world to businesses and direct to consumers in the UK, and also, as of today, Ireland. So if you're an Irish grower, check out eutrema.co.uk for some really interesting novel technology. Today, I want to talk about a different aspect of fresh produce cultivation, because on this podcast, I mention supermarkets a lot when it comes to fresh produce production and high value supermarkets. I mention restaurants and high-end restaurants for novel crops like wasabi and things like this. But I don't want to underplay the role that fast food has, because some of the figures for the amount of fresh produce used by fast food restaurants is crazy. Now, there are bespoke small operators in fast food, so non-chain fast food restaurants that do things like gourmet burgers and things like this, where they use a lot of microgreens. A company near me called Aquafarm, they supply microgreens and edible flowers to a number of fast food restaurants in the Leicester area. Shout out to them. But let's think about the really big boys, things like McDonald's. A study showed that in Europe, McDonald's their customers consume 65,000 tons of lettuce a year. That's more than half of the UK's annual lettuce production across Europe, or 20% of all of European iceberg lettuces go to McDonald's. And in North America, when the Happy Meal introduced apple slices, they instantly became the largest single buyer of apples in the US food service sector. So that's colossal. So you think about it, McDonald's have got circa 40,000 restaurants worldwide, and every burger comes through with exceptions, obviously, lettuce, onions, tomatoes, gherkins, so cucumber, apples, and then some restaurants sell salads as well, but rarer in the UK for that. So they are certainly one of the largest buyers of fresh produce on earth. And it's not just meat and starch heavy. They are consumers of vast quantities of crops, and many of which will be grown hydroponically. Think about other fast food restaurants like Taco Bell, mainly US focused, although lots of restaurants appearing in the UK now, because it's obviously Tex-Mex type food. It's obviously lettuce, tomatoes, onions again make up a very high proportion of their menu, but probably not as much as McDonald's on a per meal basis. Subway, probably one of the highest, I would have thought, because of the selection that you get at Subway. So there'll be vast consumers of cucumbers, peppers, lettuce. And I mention this because being able to look for alternatives, customers for your products could be, don't think outside the box. Don't always think supermarkets and high-end Michelin star or, gourmet restaurants, because this is where the money is. Nando's in the UK is an example. That's chicken and chips, and that is one of the biggest, most profitable companies in the UK. Now, what chains have a high share of fresh produce in the menu? So we talk about total volume. McDonald's is the absolute key, or Subway in total tons. But what about the fraction of the menu that is made up of fresh produce? What's the highest proportion? Well, obviously it's going to be your sort of salad bowl and things like Just Salad Works, but also lots of Asian, Chinese, Korean, sort of not just standard Chinese restaurants, but the more healthier options that you can get. And Panera Bread, which is very much a US based brand, not at all. I've never seen one of those in Europe, but let me know if you have. Probably one in London, I would imagine. Then you've got things like Chipotle, which will obviously have a lot of fresh avocado, I would assume, for their guacamole. I would imagine that's made in store because guacamole that's pre-made is pretty rank. Pizza Hut is an odd special case. Before 2012, Pizza Hut was reportedly one of the largest purchasers of kale in the US, but they used it mostly as a decorative garnish on salad bars, not as a menu highlight. Not many people were actually eating the kale. If they were probably in for a surprise because it had probably been there for quite a long time. Pizza Hut is in a bad way in the UK, and lots of the restaurants have closed down. So there you go. If you were able to get a contract to supply one of these large chains with a particular vegetable or even fruit, then you would be onto a massive winner, and it will secure it for long term. But as I said previously, it's very difficult to secure these sorts of contracts, as I've tried in the past when it comes to samphire, when I tried to grow that commercially as a sort of side project for the Eutrema. One of the many things I do, often I set up small little trial companies to try doing different things. Tried doing beneficial insects at one point, and then eventually I got persuaded to take up golf instead of doing these side projects during the winter, because it was cheaper to play. Unbelievably, it was cheaper to play golf than it was to set up these companies, and I wasted less money doing it. I must be the only person in the world who takes up golf in the winter and does it to save money. There you go. So not that I'm particularly good at golf, but that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. A bit of a side project into fast food and their use of fresh produce and hydroponically grown fresh produce. Many of it will be. And I just highlight that we are now selling direct to customers in Ireland. And Ireland is a massive importer of fresh produce. Lots of countries are, but Ireland particularly. And there's massive opportunities for fresh produce and hydroponic growers in Ireland because of this massive import differential. And the difference between the imports and the export in Ireland would be even starker if it wasn't for the fact that lots of mushrooms are grown in Ireland, and that is classed as horticulture. However, they're not plants. They're more closely related to humans than they are plants. So really shouldn't be horticulture. So we're talking at least a sort of £500 million export-import gap for Ireland for fresh produce. So crazy. And they do export a lot to the UK, but as I say, that's mainly probably strawberries and mushrooms that is mainly focused on. But if you know different, then please let me know. And if you're an Irish hydroponic grower or potentially hydroponic grower, then please do get in touch. I'm more than happy to help you out with any problems or queries or questions you might have about setting up, or pest disease, challenges, physiological issues, anything like that. If you're already operating, then just let us know. Okay, so that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. If you've liked this episode, then please leave an Apple Podcast review. If you're not on Apple Podcast, don't bother leaving a review because it doesn't help the podcast, but do make sure you follow the podcast and check out eutrema.co.uk. That's everything for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you again tomorrow.